You win Student of the Year. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Jillian Charest. I'm the class of 2004 and the current president of the Alumni Board of Directors. Again, thanks for coming to the Career Connections event, and special thanks to the alumni that traveled in, our employers that set up for the career fair, the SMC teams that are here, career services, institutional advancement, and students. I mean, you guys are what make these events, what make them great. Before I introduce our keynote speaker and moderator, I'd like to share just a few details about how this session will unfold. We have a series, I would say a series of prepared questions, but we have some prompts to maybe start with to guide the discussion, but we strongly encourage and are asking you all to participate. So if you have questions of Ted and Erica, you know, we have a mic. By we, it's me. I'll walk it over to you. So yeah, raise your hand, ask the question, you know, really at any time, but we will also have a specific Q&A section. So if you want to wait until then, you can ask your question then, but please don't hesitate if, you know, one of these guys say something and you're like, oh, I have a question about that. We want this to be interactive, so your participation is welcomed and super appreciated. So the first person I'd like to introduce is Erica Shabbat. Yes, like Cabot, but Shabbat. She's a class of 2002 grad, a member of the Alumni Board, and she's going to moderate this session with her friend in our keynote, Ted Brady, the class of 2000. Ted is the executive director of the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and we are thrilled to have him here, so thank you for coming. With that, I'll kick it over to you, and try to not have any hot microphones.
Thank you, Jillian. We're super happy to be hosting this event today. Please do not be shy, as Jillian mentioned. Feel free to interrupt at any time. Of course, save your questions till the end, but I'm just thrilled to be here with, as Jillian mentioned, 2000 St. Mike's grad Ted Brady. Ted and I overlapped here a little bit at St. Mike's, and then our career path kind of led us back to each other for a few years, if you will, once we graduated. Ted is a son of Rhode Island, but he detoured after St. Mike's to Washington, D.C. for a few years before coming back home to Vermont. And here he is raising his two amazing boys with Erin, his wife. And sometimes I think the only thing worse than talking about yourself is listening to somebody else talk about you. So I'm going to turn it over to Ted for a brief introduction. And then, as Jillian mentioned, got a couple of questions to kick us off, and then hope we can hear from all of you.
Oh, thanks, Erica. Before I talk about myself, I want to talk about Erica for a second, because I have one of the most embarrassing origin stories with Erica in the world, which is we were both journalism students here, right? And so is the journalism department still over in Bergeron? All right, so it was in Bergeron, right? And I also, courtesy of Kate Soons, was a St. Mike's Fire and Rescue kid. And so if you know anything about fire and rescue kids, they're unreliable, right? They don't show up to class. They oftentimes don't show up to important appointments. And Erica was 2 years behind me. And so as an upperclassman in the journalism department, one of the things you did was edit newspaper stories, right? And Erica came to her first, it was called the Defender. Is it still the Defender? Came to her first Defender editor meeting and waited. Because Ted, the upperclassman, was on a call, probably with Kate, somewhere in Winooski or Colchester or Williston. And I didn't think anything of it until we end up together working in Pat Leahy's office and Senator Leahy's office in DC. And Erica brings it up at the most inopportune time when we're sitting with the senator and say, hey, Ted, remember when you stood me up at my first ever writing assignment meeting? Thanks a lot, Erica. Yes.
I have a different recollection.
Anywho, so thanks. It's great to be back at St. Mike's, and I'm here frequently. I am a regular attendee at Mass. Well, I mean, I can tell you that. Nobody really knows if I am. I go sometimes. And love being on campus here. My godson is a junior on campus. I'll spare the name so he doesn't get grief. So currently, since 2000, I've worked in all sorts of different places in public service, and I've kind of gone from the peak of public service back down to what a lot of people think of as the bottom of public service. I've gone the opposite way, from federal back down to town. And I actually think of it very differently, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But I started my career right out of St. Mike's. Well, I should say there are 3 goals I have today. 1 is to remind you of the value of the St. Mike's Alumni Network. 2 is to remind you the value of the opportunities in Vermont. And 3 is to implore you to learn how to professionally network. Those are the 3 goals. And all of the things that I've done in my career kind of tie to those 3 things. So right out of St. Mike's, I started working in Vermont for Senator Patrick Leahy, class of 1961, maybe? And working as what is affectionately called a staff ass, a staff assistant, answering the phone. And I spent 6 months there before I got to go to D.C., and I worked in Pat Leahy's office in D.C. For about 5 years. Had the best time of my life, learned so much. And I'll hopefully be able to tell a couple of embarrassing stories there. But then I realized that my heart was in Vermont. I realized that everything that I cared about, that I wanted to make a difference in this world, was in this place, in the Green Mountains. And I came back to Vermont working for Senator Leahy and did community and economic development outreach for about 7 or 8 years. God, is that math all right? Maybe you can audit me later. I'm a poli-sci journalism major, so I don't know anything about math. Then I spent some time in the state doing that, and where I feel like I got a PhD in Vermont. I'm a Rhode Islander by birth, and it was this incredible experience. And then after that, working in Senator Leahy's office for almost 15 years, I was fortunate enough to be appointed by President Obama to run an organization called the USDA Rural Development for Vermont and New Hampshire. It's a political appointment that distributed about $1 billion a year to Vermont and New Hampshire, and it was, again, a magical experience for 3 or 4 years until I was fired by Donald Trump. As a political appointee, you don't get to generally outlive a political term, and I was forced back into the wild, where sorry to go on like this, but you need to know the backstory before I go into the origin story. This is like a sequel to a Marvel movie. Where I was forced to go back into the wild, and again, going back to what I think about when I'm fishing, what I think about when I'm skiing and alone in the lift, or what I think about when I'm out biking, is how to make Vermont a better place. And I was really lucky that Governor Phil Scott appointed me in his first term to be the Deputy Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, which is the tourism department, it's the economic incentive agency here, it's the housing department, historic preservation, like all these really cool things. And then the pandemic hit, and I got saddled with being the one that got to decide which businesses closed and opened. And it burned me out, and I had to leave the Agency of Commerce because I was just like, this isn't what I want to be doing. And I got really lucky to come to the best unit of government, so federal, state, to towns. And I currently run an organization called the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, which I'm sure many of you don't know what it is. Every state in the country has an association like this. I sometimes refer to it as like a chamber of commerce of towns. Every single town in the state of Vermont is a member of my organization. They're dues-paying members, and we provide legal assistance. We represent them in the State House. We represent them in D.C. We provide insurance. We provide unemployment insurance. We're just the resource. We help mayors and select board members and town managers do their job. It's the greatest honor I've ever had in my life. People depend on us. People look to us for the answers. So, boy, long explanation of what I'm doing. Maybe we can talk more about why that's important for you as you think about what you're going to be doing in life. I should pause there because I've been talking a lot, Erica. Sorry. At least I showed up this time.
Thank goodness for that. Well, we're here because we want to hear you talk, advocate, and we want to hear about what you have to share and offer to these students on your experience and things like that. But maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what brought you to St. Mike's, what drew you to St. Mike's as a high school student looking at colleges, coming from Rhode Island, not too far away, but different landscape up here. And maybe why you were drawn to the majors that you settled on, and whether or not you think that prepped you for what you've been doing these last few years.
I'm going to tell you that the most important thing is signage. Because what drew me to St. Mike's was the sign that said St. Michael's College, exit 15. And I kid you not. We came up here to look at Middlebury and UVM. And my guidance counselor, who was also the cross-country coach at Bishop Hendricken High School in Warwick, Rhode Island, I did not run cross-country. Maybe you can tell I'm not an athlete. I did not play basketball. And my great line that I learned at St. Mike's, when people ask me, do I play basketball, I look at them seriously and I say, do you play mini golf? Back off. Joe Adamek, my high school guidance counselor, put the St. Mike's brochure in front of me and said, this is the right place for you. And I took that brochure and I threw it away. Literally threw it away. And when we were up here, I saw the sign on Route 15, at exit 15, and said, Mom and Dad, let's stop at St. Mike's. Joe Adamek said we should check it out. And when I was here, I felt, as I'm sure I hope every student here has had that same experience, it felt like home. And I didn't know what I was getting into, but when Jerry Flanagan, then the director of admissions, sent me a birthday card, I was sold. Handwritten birthday card. So then while I'm here at St. Mike's, I'm in a life of public service, right? I didn't think I was going to go into the nonprofit or the government sector as a kid. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to do on May 7th or whatever it was, 2000, when I graduated either. I didn't know the job I'm in today existed. Pat Leahy was my graduation speaker, but I didn't know I was going to work for him. I took 2 months off that summer and did nothing. I sat in the beach and it was a great summer. So don't feel bad if that's your plan when you graduate. It's okay to take time off. But I think what I learned at St. Mike's through fire and rescue, through 3 different internships, through a job at the Ground Round where I had to clean up peanuts off of the floor on Williston Road, I became confident in myself as a person. I became confident in having a purpose, and I kind of understood a lot more about life thanks to those 4 years on campus. And that's kind of the building block for my story.
It's a good building. I think I have to counter a story that both of us have told, because I actually think that my first encounter with Ted Brady, you were an orientation leader, and I moved in, and I'm 99% sure you moved my boxes up to my room. And I'm 99% sure I asked you if you played basketball. I'm also sure I got that response. You've talked a lot about fire and rescue and being on the team there and whatnot, but I know you did other things here at St. Mike's as well. What were some of the things outside of the classroom, right?
Yeah.
Outside of your journalism and poli-sci professors and all of the other professors that you encountered, the experiences outside of the classroom that made it a holistic, St. Mike's experience that have now helped shape your professional career, your personal life, your family, and all of that?
Yeah, great question. Well, first, one of my poli-sci professors is here, right? Bill Wilson. I had international relations with Bill. Bill Grover was another one of my poli-sci professors, and I bring those up because I wasn't at a lot of those classes. Once again, because of St. Mike's Fire and Rescue, but also because I believe that the internship was the key. Getting out of this campus and into the community was really important to me, and I'd encourage everyone to do that, whether it's while you're at college or right when you graduate. I had an internship with what was then the INS, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, just down the road. Might not know this, but a huge nerve cell of what right now is a politically sensitive organization exists here in South Burlington. We're talking about several thousand employees for the Department of Homeland Security work out of Vermont. And I had the great honor of working in the public affairs office as an intern for a St. Mike's alumni, Mary Brodsky. I got that internship because of a St. Mike's alumni. And it was an incredible experience. I worked across the hall from a uniformed Border Patrol agent that was in charge of every Border Patrol agent east of the Mississippi. He taught me how to fly fish. Wild. His nephew is currently the head of Fish and Wildlife, and I see him on a regular basis. Weird St. Mike's connections, right? So that was this incredible experience that connected me to the federal bureaucracy and made me aware of these great opportunities in federal government. Second one was, as a journalism student, I had an internship at the Burlington Free Press. Is Becky Holt a St. Mike's alum, or does she just love St. Mike's? I don't know. Becky's an alum with another St. Mike's alum. Why did I get that internship? I'm sure it's because Becky spoke up for me. She regretted it because I was a horrible writer. I'm not kidding. I got the most amount of anti-fan mail because I just kept making mistakes. I had a hard time with relationships, and at one point I somehow wrote about a woman that was married to her brother. She wasn't literally, but the way I described it. And I got 100 pieces of mail saying, how could this be a true relationship? Anyways, Becky regretted having me on the team.
I'm not so sure you should regret you missing that first one.
Yes, I was a bad editor too. And so those experiences really pulled me out of St. Mike's and put me into this professional network in Vermont that were really important.
Can I ask a question?
I'm ready.
I work in the career office, and I'm just wondering, what kind of career skills do you think you developed in those internships? We talk a lot about communication, professionalism, teamwork, critical thinking. What do you think you learned from that, or from the ground up?
Thanks, Joe. Let me tell you about one of the most embarrassing things I learned. I show up to day one with Mary, and at the time it was this big, the immigration service was getting ready for this Haitian exodus to Miami. And believe it or not, in South Burlington, their job was to prepare for this mass immigration event. And so my job was to go and clip newspaper articles from all over the country about Haitian immigration. And it would, Mary said, when you're done with this, it goes into the circular file. And it took me, I'm not kidding, 2 months to realize that was the trash can. So sorry, that's not really a good example. What did I learn in those internships? I think that accountability was a huge one. You're accountable here on college, on campus, right, to your professor and to a grade, which I don't know, for some of you that's important. For me, it actually really wasn't. I wasn't motivated by an A. But when I had, I'm forgetting Ed's last name, the Burlington Free Press editor call me when I was on a Saturday night hanging out with friends and yell at me because I messed up that article, it brought this new level. Oh my God, this is a whole nother level of accountability. At Immigration, they put me in charge of writing the newsletter and drafting and designing the newsletter for the East Coast. Again, the accountability of you're building something that actually matters, that's real world. It's not just a professor reading it. I think those were, that's probably the most important thing I learned.
What else? We want to hear from the students. That's what we're here for. Start tapping you on the shoulder.
Can I?
No, I was going to ask you to tell an embarrassing story.
Well, I want to tell you, I talk my 3 things about alumni and the importance of that network, talk about the opportunity in Vermont, and talk about networking. Just about the alumni network. If you thought you bought a college education at St. Mike's to learn, an academic skill, and that's it, you're sorely mistaken. I've found the most valuable piece of St. Mike's has been the alumni network I bought. And throughout my time at St. Mike's, I have constantly found that this school outperforms expectations. Right? If you go to Yale, if you go to Harvard, you're buying an alumni network, you know it. When you go to St. Mike's, I don't think you necessarily realize it. So I just want to share a few of the alumni in my life that have literally changed it. And staff. I have to first shout out to Mike Donahue, who was my journalism advisor. Embarrassing story about Mike. The first time I met with Mike, I parked over here in this lot, right? I was fortunate enough to have a car on campus because I told some lie to Mike Samara that I needed it for an off-campus job. And I park in a spot that says faculty and staff, 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. And it's like 5 p.m. And I go sit in Bergeron, and Mike Donahue comes and he goes, shouts a lot of profanity. I mean, a lot of profanity. Somebody's parked in my spot, da-da-da-da, and just rips in. And he sits down, and I go, I think I'm parked in your spot. He just turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. So Mike Donahue is the reason I got a job in Pat Leahy's office. He was friends with John Goodrow, who was hiring for a staff assistant. So let's talk about that St. Mike's connection. 2, Pat Leahy. He had an affinity for St. Mike's kids, let's be honest. As Erica and I are both walking proof of. 3, this is a crazy story. When I got transferred or when I got promoted to DC, finding a house in DC is impossible. Even then, right? I tell you I spent $700 in my first place in DC a month, and you probably all laugh because it's so little money. But at the time, that was insane. It was a room, 10 by 10 room. There were 25 other people in that apartment signing applications. There was an 80-year-old man in the corner. His name was Al LaFlamme. Never met him before. But downstairs in the basement, in the garage of this building, is a New Hampshire license plate. And so, I don't know, you try to make conversation with the guy. Say, I see your New Hampshire license plate. I went to St. Mike's. And Al literally said, everybody out. This guy's getting the apartment. He was a graduate of St. Michael's College. My first apartment. Al LaFlamme, God bless him. Changed my life. Brian Bannock. Eric and I both worked with Brian. Brian was, he's class of 99 maybe? He was Tom Vilsack, who was the Secretary of Agriculture for Biden and for Obama. He was his chief of staff. That's how I basically got the job at USDA Rural Development. You heard from Lindsay Curley last year. St. Mike's heard from Lindsay Curley, class of, anybody, 89, 91? Let's say class of 2005, because she looks really young. She's the Secretary of Commerce. There's a job connection. My current board chair at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, Marianne Guyette. She's, I think, an 88er. St. Mike's. I cannot get away from that St. Mike's connection. So just, the alumni network will not necessarily get you that job, but it gives you so many opportunities to have conversations, and people have an affinity. I say I'd never met a St. Mike's kid I didn't like at first.
I think that extends too, Ted, to beyond just being a soon-to-be or recent graduate. I was making a career change after 20 years with Senator Leahy and a little bit more with another senator, and was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was scouring LinkedIn, as one does now, but did not do back when Ted and I were looking for jobs. And stumbled upon a St. Mike's graduate whose name, of course, I cannot now remember, graduated in 1985 and worked at Visa. I was applying for a job at Visa, and you had to get somebody who worked there to invite you to apply. And I messaged this guy in LinkedIn, I'm a St. Mike's grad, 02, you don't know me, but I'm trying to make a change in my career. Within 12 hours, I had an invitation to apply, an offer to connect with whoever it was that he needed to find out was responsible for the hiring, and an open invitation to reach out anytime I needed more assistance. And that's just a complete stranger who's not, because they're part of the St. Mike's community, right? So it's so much more than the people that you deliberately encounter or by chance encounter or fates cross your paths. It's also the people out there that you might never meet in person, but you find them and they want to be helpful, and you should never forget that. You should never forget that. Who has a question? Somebody's got a question. He's so engaging.
I have a question. I'm curious if you could explain how throughout your ebbs and flows of your career, maybe peaks and valleys would be a better word, but like when you've had kind of a difficult time, like what have you tapped into that you learned maybe about yourself or your time at St. Mike's that kind of helped you get out of that tough spot?
I've had plenty. I mean, you heard my resume. I can't keep a job. So I should mention that my college roommate's in the room. Shane Lamos, Shane and I lived off campus senior year, which was probably for the better. Shane kept me going. That's what I think about. Anytime I'm down, I think of Shane. No, I'm kidding. I think what really got me, has gotten me through those transitions has been, St. Mike's taught me that life is about something much bigger and about service. And that it's not about my career, it's about how I'm having an impact on the world. How am I, and that impact, let's be honest, I haven't had much of an impact, but I'm trying to, and that's been the key that has gotten me through it. I also think the thing that St. Mike's did differently than a lot of places is it has allowed me to pair my vocation and my avocation. So the way I make a living and what I love in life have somehow come together. And I think I learned that at St. Mike's. I think I learned that when I was on St. Mike's Fire and Rescue, like, oh, you can actually, there was this alumni, so over at the rescue garage, the really crummy one when I was here, alumni would sometimes come over and help because the kids can't do all the shifts. And there was this guy, Chris, he was a psychology major. Come on, Kate, help me. His nickname was Psych, right? Maybe, I don't know. Chris Sear, it wasn't Chris. Anyways, he once said to me, why do you do this? And like, you know, he was just being a jerk, let's be honest. Because I was happy and he wasn't, so he wanted to make me, why do you do this? And I go, because I like to give back. I want to do something for the community. And he goes, BS, you do this because it's fun. And you know what? He's probably right. I like driving fast with a siren and lights. And I learned, actually, you can do both. You can actually enjoy what you're doing, and you can make a living, and hopefully make a little money. And I think St. Mike's taught me that, avocation and vocation. Although I'm not a professional fly fishing guide, which I'd probably like to do more than this.
There's always a try. We'll get there someday.
We know a guy for fly fishing, so we'll put that out there.
Do you ever wish you had opted for a different major while you were here? Seems like the answer would be no, but there are times that I think maybe philosophy would have been a better option.
Listen, I brought up Shane, so let's talk about Shane for a second. Here's a guy, were you a bio major? Biochem major, right? Let's be honest, if you're a biochem major, you're pretty set in your career. You know what you're going to be doing. I have another friend, my closest friend in the world, who's a St. Mike's grad, who's a doc. You know, he kind of had a path. I didn't have a path. So have I many times sat there and said, oh my God, what's going to happen next? I have no actual skills. Yeah, on a regular basis. As you heard, I went to school for writing, and I'm a crummy writer. So yeah, I think about that often, but I hope this is a message that everyone hears and that resonates with the people that are in careers now. It's okay. It's okay to have moments of downtime. It's okay when your career's not popping. It's okay when you've made a big investment of time, effort, and energy and it's not working out. It's okay to recalibrate. So maybe if I were in a more directed major, I wouldn't have that opportunity. I find my liberal arts major, my liberal arts education has given me the chance to be a little more flexible and open more doors. Yeah.
I'm trying to make direct eye contact.
So you talk about networking with other alums. Am I loud enough? I can't.
Kate, is Kate loud enough?
Oh, yeah. So thanks for being here and shouting out Ted. You talk about networking and the alumni network, and John Goodrow, who was friends with the person at where?
In Leahy's office, or
In Leahy's
Mike
office.
Donahue.
Yeah. His wife was Thomas's daycare provider.
Yes.
St. Mike's daycare in town, right?
Yes.
So there's that, right? I'm just wondering if you have any more connections with like the historical society that we might be able to like get 90 and 92 off of the historical registry.
Yeah. I'll work the answer is no. That's a very important historical piece of Vermont's history.
Right. But it sounds like a lot of your connections were serendipity,
Yeah.
right? Is there anything, knowing what you know now, that you could recommend to the
Yeah.
students for creating those networks and, you know, whether it's LinkedIn or like attending today, right? Thank you for coming today, but things that you might, you know, that you've learned over the years to generate or solidify some connections.
Thank you for bringing me back to one of my 3 central points that I lost track of.
Meow, meow.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it.
You're not going to do it?
Yeah, I tell you what, it is serendipity. Everything comes down to serendipity, I think. You have to prepare yourself in life to take advantage of luck, right? But when it comes to networking, I will say there's a really important lesson I learned. First of all, I enjoy it, which I know everybody doesn't. And it's hard to tell an introvert to enjoy networking. So I want to be very cognizant of that before I say anything. But 2, you do have to try at it. And you do have to put yourself in as many situations as possible. And you also need to do it in a way that you're not trying to get a job. You actually have to enjoy the professional networking. You have to actually be out there looking to make friends with people, not exploit a relationship. And the exploitation naturally happens, right? The relationship grows into something. And so a couple of things that I would recommend that I did. 1, never miss an opportunity for a professional related networking experience. And the nice thing is, as a graduate of college, you're of legal age to drink. And that means happy hours. Like, in all seriousness, when you get invited to a drink or dinner with a group of people who are loosely connected to you but are professionally connected, take advantage of it. Go. 2, sports events. Softball. Come on. The Senate Softball League, you know, kickball league, all of those things that are somehow connected to your job, connected to your first job, connected to a professional group, or maybe not even. Get involved in those networks. 3, structured corporate networking events. You need to get comfortable with them. Go to Lake Champlain Regional Chamber of Commerce meetings if you're going to stick around in Vermont. Go to their happy hours. Go to their networking events. That's what they're there for. You're going to walk in and you're going to feel completely overwhelmed and like you know nobody. It's okay. That's literally what the event is meant for. It would be like going to a hospital and being embarrassed you're sick. Like, no, that's what the whole place exists for. So feel comfortable going in and make it a goal just to walk out there meeting 1 or 2 people. You don't need to meet everybody in the room. And I guess the third one is to recognize that it's okay also to try to develop those relationships with no purpose. So I think about a really important relationship in my life now is this guy, Dom Cloud. He's the city manager of the city of St. Albans. Dom and I were distant relationships. We just happened to like run into each other occasionally. And one day I said, hey, you like fishing, I like fishing, let's just go fishing. And he took his kid and I showed him a spot that Shane actually showed me, which is amazing. And we caught a bunch of fish. And Dom and I are very close now, but at the time we weren't. And I wasn't trying to build this professional relationship. It's just, I wasn't trying to bring new friends into my life. It's just, that's what you have to do. And now Dom is, he was on my board. Dom is in my life on a regular basis. So you never know how those things are going to grow. Kate, did that go anywhere near what you were asking?
Yes.
Meow.
Yes.
She dared me to say it.
I did.
What are the students who are in the room, what are you thinking about? It's overwhelming sometimes when you're, staring down graduation and you're trying to enjoy the end of school and all of that, and you've maybe got your parents over here saying, what are you doing now? We've all been there. It can be a lot, but there's always a way through, and there's a whole universe of people willing to help support that. What are you thinking of? What are questions that you have as you're about to consider the next steps, if you will?
Awkward silence, 7 seconds.
That's okay too. The unknowing is part of it, but what's most important, I think what you've been hearing Ted say is you might not know what those next steps are, but you have to get out there and ask. You have to put yourself out there to figure out what questions you need to ask, right? Sometimes you don't even know and they just happen organically in those conversations, and Every one person you meet, you say, hey, you got 3 people you can introduce me to? And you start building, all of a sudden your network is not 4 people, your network is 3 people, or 30 people, right? Sorry. Yes.
Is there an appropriate timeline for events that you should be taking part in after you graduate to kind of set you on that path to a good career? Is there a timeline you should be following, or does it sort of vary based on your path?
I can take a shot at it. I don't think there is a timeline. First of all, listen, as a college graduate, you are the belle of the ball. Every room you walk into, you might not realize this, people want to talk to you. People are like, oh, this is how I'm going to solve my staffing problem. Oh, this person's young and I need young blood back into my organization. You are very popular. So, yeah, take advantage of that. However, there's no wrong time. Somebody said to me a couple of months back, they said, boy, you've built a really good career. And I looked him in the eyes and I actually said, not on purpose and not with intention. And so I don't think you need to be as intentional as, I don't know, somebody who becomes a professor at St. Mike's in chemistry, in biology. Sometimes it's okay not to. So, I don't know if you have a different opinion.
No, I mean, there isn't a right answer that we can give you on that. It is never too early to start networking and meeting people and putting yourself out there and talking to people about what those next steps might be. You never know, and this goes for any part of your life, whether it's right when you're graduating from college or when you're 5 years out and looking for a different job, or you're 25 years into a career and looking for a career shift. You could talk to somebody today and hope that something might materialize, and nothing does, and 6 months later, they think to themselves, I remember, they might be interested in this, I'm gonna apply. So that will never happen, though, if you're not putting yourself in rooms like Ted was talking about and meeting people and being memorable, not because you're making a big splash, but because you're sincere and honest and direct and engaging. And that does come more naturally for some people than it does for others. In the career path that I had, I am actually a very big introvert. I do not like being in rooms with people, but you have to force yourself to do it and find the commonality. The St. Mike's network is a great way to do that because you have St. Michael's in common. You have something to talk about. It's not, you're not just trying to make chit chat about what sports team you like that might be offensive to whoever you're talking to. New England sports fan right here. But you have something in common to talk about. I remember when, this building didn't exist on this campus, and you can tell me about how great it is now that it's here. So there's find the familiar thing to make the connection with, and it's just never too early to start. And you should, even when you're in a career and in a job, you shouldn't stop. You should never stop networking, because you just never know where it's gonna lead.
I think one anecdote to that too is like, some people have a linear path, but a lot of people don't. So to your, almost like to the serendipitous question earlier, like, you might have an idea of what you want to do, and then you have a meeting with someone and you're like, oh, actually, maybe I don't want to do that. But you start to gather the list of things that you like, and then the list of things that maybe you don't like, and then that influences your decisions on what, it's like a choose your own adventure, basically.
I think that's an important thing about networking. Networking's not necessarily about, again, trying to get a job. Sometimes it's about learning about all these interesting things that people are doing and just having more awareness. I think that's a huge piece. Okay, so let's be honest, we don't have tons of students in the room, but we have some. Can you raise your hand if you're a student? I know, let's basic participation, excellent. All seniors? Anybody not a senior? All right, excellent, even better. How many people see themselves taking a job in Vermont upon graduation?
Ooh, we got one.
Couple, right? Excellent. So let me share, for those that don't know or aren't convinced, the opportunity in Vermont. Right? This place is rich with every kind of career you could imagine. Now, downstairs at the Career Festival today, there were a dozen people looking for jobs. Look in 7 days, there's 100. Look in Indeed, there's 7,000. Right? There are tons of opportunities. Everything from building airplanes to being a police officer to building semiconductor chips to groundbreaking research at a incredibly robust academic institution. There's just so much opportunity. And I wanted to just touch on public service for a second, because that's what I'm into. And what the advantages of Vermont in public service are. God, I have to go back to my notes. That's sad. A couple of thoughts. One, we have the most accessible state house in the United States of America, which means you have the most accessible legislators, which means you have the most accessible cabinet secretaries, the most accessible governor. If you were interested in going into some line of law, if you were interested in going into some line of public service, you would be a fool not to go to the State House for a couple of days before you graduate and experience and just sit in that atmosphere and see, oh, every year they hire 24 committee assistants who are in the center of that conversation. You need no skills other than a pulse and a college degree to get that job. What a crazy idea. There are about 300 job openings, might be closer to 100 last time I checked, for the state of Vermont. And there's a St. Michael's grad in almost every single division of the state of Vermont. So you have an instant network into all these places. The federal government, I talked about Homeland Security. There's a huge Homeland Security presence here. Whether you want to be an armed police officer or whether you want to be somebody who's processing refugee and asylum paperwork at the service center, that employs 600 people in Vermont. There are incredible opportunities at the federal level. We have accessible congressional offices. Thanks to your professors, if you were actually interested in something, you could either get an internship or one of those staff-ass jobs pretty easily compared to almost every other state in the country. These things are accessible to you, comparatively very accessible. And then I want to talk just about municipal service for a second. Local government is where it's at. In this time of perilous national politics, I tell people to get down with their town, because their town needs you. And it's a place you can make tremendous change. And it's a place where a college graduate, right out of college, can get a job with more responsibility than they should have. I mean that. You could become a treasurer or a clerk that's helping manage elections within a year of graduation. You could end up running a rec program for a small town and influencing and changing kids' life. You could end up working as an assistant to a town manager or a town administrator and helping them and learning everything about how a town operates. At my organization, VLCT.org, we have 50 jobs at Vermont municipalities right now. The rec director in Randolph, a tech specialist in Burlington, assistant town clerk in Hardwick, a rec specialist in Burlington, a paramedic in Morristown. All these jobs, I looked at them, there's not a barrier entry to somebody graduating from St. Mike's. If you have a connection to that thing, you're going to be a candidate. And even if you're not good enough for that job, you don't have the qualifications, they're going to look at your application and say, maybe we could fit them into a different job. So I just encourage you to check it out. It's vlct.org. Get down with your town.
Can we talk about that Burlington rec? Maybe I'm interested.
Yeah.
What are some of your majors? Students, I saw all your hands. What are some of your majors? What are you studying? Business?
Business.
Okay. Business? Why did you guys choose business?
That's simple. I love it.
Okay. What have you enjoyed most about it? In the classes you've taken so far?
There's all the different things I learned in such a variety of classes that you take that you gain so many different, knowledge from all the different classes that now as a senior I get to kind of put into my class, which is nice.
And the world is your oyster as you're getting ready to graduate, right? You can apply that in a lot of different places, right? What other majors in the room? See you.
Business as well.
Business. Didn't you say you were here for a class because it was required?
Yep.
What class is that?
Organizational problem solving.
I love this. I love this. Where are your classmates? All right, good. Okay. All right, noted for next year, professors.
I'm studying accounting.
Accounting? Okay.
That is a great example of you can write your own ticket. Just here, this is a wild thing. My financial advisor out of Boston, St. Mike's grad, same year as me. I didn't know him, which is really embarrassing. My auditor, St. Mike's grad, out of here in Vermont. We run a huge captive insurance business here in Vermont, like self-insurance. St. Mike's grad, who helps us with our captive insurance. You are just well done on your major choice.
And do we have any questions from our juniors, you said, right? What are you guys studying?
Business and accounting.
Okay,
Digital marketing and marketing.
okay. And what are your juniors? You've got another year ahead of you here and whatnot, but I'm so excited to see you here today. What brought you to this discussion today?
I'm looking for like a summer internship, so I'm
Okay. What about you?
sitting.
Same? Okay. Well, you got to start someplace, right? Did you hit the tables when we were over in LEO too? That's fantastic. Good to hear. Good to hear. Does anybody have any questions? Surely.
What does your day-to-day look like at the Vermont cities? What's it called?
Vermont League of Cities and Towns. I know, I like to think I'm like a Cape superhero, the League of Avengers or something. I don't know. Thanks for asking. It's so different. This is the best part. That I didn't know this job existed when I graduated, right? It's different every day. On Tuesday, I had the great honor of going to 3 different town meetings, right, in Vermont, and present awards to municipal officials that had been in municipal positions for more than 50 years. And so I was on the shores of Lake Elmore with 100 people listening to violin music in between votes and awarding a town zoning officer a 50-year pin. I was in Worcester talking about school closures. That it could be like that. It could be on the road meeting with officials. On another day, it could be dealing with a really intense legal case. We are the property casualty and liability insurers for every single town. So when you see a police officer involved shooting, a police officer involved incident, when you see a town has done something that has offended somebody, I get to be the one that defends them. And we hire attorneys and claims adjusters. So I might be dealing with lawyers and dealing with settling claims and things along those lines. I might be in the State House for a couple hours lobbying for more transportation funding, for road construction, for town aid. And I might be on the phone for a couple hours talking to my counterparts across the country, talking about issues that face towns and cities across the country. So it can be really different, and that's the best part. Thanks for asking. Another piece of advice, first, I heard some people looking for internships. Do I have a deal for you? The Vermont League of Cities and Towns has a summer internship program. Do not leave here without grabbing the piece of paper that I have somewhere that describes the internship program. It's in marketing, communications, and risk management. So it's right up your alley. So I hope you'll take one of those sheets before you leave. I also want to give you advice that when you get out of here, and you're looking for a job, don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. Take the first several jobs I had were well below what I was capable of doing, but I saw the opportunity and I saw an opportunity for something new and interesting. The best job I ever had was one that I needed no college degree to do, which was I drove Senator Leahy around Washington, D.C. for a year before 9/11, before security crackdown, and it was the best experience of my life. I just have to tell one goofy story that hopefully will distract you and wake you up. Well, 2. I'm going to tell 2 stories while I was a driver. Maybe 3. The first, Senator Leahy is one of the nicest human beings in the world. He also was at some point a kid who got denied an internship on Capitol Hill. So he liked to make young people who are new in their career have a good time. And so when I was his driver, we would go to the White House occasionally, and the first time I went to the White House, it was a member-only invite, which meant only the member could go. And he grabs me and he goes, "You're coming with me." And I said, "I'm going to drop you here, Senator, and you're going to go into your meeting." And he goes, "No, you're coming with me." And he comes in, and we go up to the Secret Service desk, and he said, "Senator, I'm sorry you can't bring your staff." And he goes, "This is my missile defense expert. I need him with me at all times." And the Secret Service agent's like, "Okay." So they bring me in, and it's me, like 7 other senators, and the President of the United States in the Roosevelt room. and just with George Bush. George was like, hey, Tiff, hey, Pat, who's this guy? And Pat Leahy, the straight face, goes, George, he's my missile defense expert. And George Bush goes, I like missile defense. And they went on with the rest of their meeting with me just sitting there watching this thing go down. I don't know what the point of that story is, other than to say, you don't know what you're going to end up in. And don't worry about it. Like, don't worry about taking a job that's below your qualifications, your degree, if it's going to put you in a circumstance where you might learn something, where you might get to network with some interesting people. I hope you'll take that away for my part, because I do feel like that's how I approached my career. I never wanted to work in the senator's office. I did it, and it defined the rest of my life. And I didn't know that was going to happen. And I think that can happen in a lot of ways. It doesn't have to be something like that. It could be working for a marketing firm. It could be working for an accounting firm. It could be working for a town or a city or the state. You just don't know where it's going to go.
Those first jobs that Ted and I had were answering phones.
Yeah.
So we graduated from St. Michael's with our degrees in journalism and political science, and we answered telephone calls from people who didn't live in Vermont, who more often than not were just yelling at us for something. But for me, it was the job answering the telephones that led to my Pat Leahy, you're coming with me no matter what, and all of a sudden you're standing in a room with a new Supreme Court justice and the President of the United States, and you're holding a roll call sheet. And my sole purpose was to carry that, and I was not allowed to let it go. And you just never know where it's going to take you. And if you had asked me 6 months prior to graduation if that's the kind of job I would have taken, I would have been like, no. I'm going to be on CNN or writing for the New York Times, obviously. But as life would have it, it was a one-year opportunity to answer the telephones, and I made a career of it. And it was the best 20 years of my life. But you just never know. So you have to, the advice I always have given to interns that we've had and whatnot is you can't be too good to do anything, and you never know what door is going to open for you because you said, yes, I will man the photocopier, or yes, I will answer the telephone, or yes, I will take on more responsibility than any new college graduate should have as a assistant town manager or something like that. Every opportunity can lead to something bigger and better.
Well said. Can I tell one more driving story?
Please, because they're the best.
So the other fantastic one is I was driving the senator, again, I'm 22, to Katharine Graham's house, who at the time, she's a big deal. She's a publisher of the Washington Post when the Washington Post was one of the leading papers in the world. And it's a big festive to do, and I dropped the senator off and his wife, and I said, this is like remember the Zach Morris cell phone days? The cell phone's sitting next to me, like, Senator, just call me when you're done, and I'll come back and pick you up. And I let my foot off the brake. And Marcel and the senator turned their backs, and all of a sudden, I look up, because I was looking off to the side as I was pulling out, and there is Dick Cheney on the hood of Pat Leahy's car. And Secret Service agents quickly removed me from Pat Leahy's car. And there's Senator Leahy and Marcel walking into Katharine Graham's house. And Marcel Leahy, who many of you have probably seen, the most wonderful, sweetest woman in the world, and she is looking back at me with this giant grin, just mocking the situation I had put myself in. And whatever, it de-escalates. The Vice President of the United States goes away. The Secret Service agents have taught me a lesson. It was like 2 days later on the United States Senate floor that a very famous thing happened where Dick Cheney told Pat Leahy to go do something anatomically impossible to himself. And it made the national news. And to this day, I think it's because I ran Dick Cheney over. Yeah. Sorry.
You're more than a footnote in history, Ted.
I think on that.
I think
Maybe
the lesson here is don't let Ted drive you anywhere.
Yeah.
Call me instead, and I'll take care of it.
I do. If I remember, I was taught public speaking 101. Tell them what you're going to tell them. tell them, and then remind them what you told them. So I just want to leave this, my message really importantly. Value the St. Mike's network for what it is. If your resume doesn't stress St. Mike's enough, put more St. Mike's into it. If you find an opportunity when you're meeting somebody new to mention the fact that you went to St. Mike's, do it. Because you're going to be surprised how often there's a connection, especially here in Vermont in the Northeast. So that's your St. Mike's network. 2, network. I don't know how else to say this to you. It's the most important thing you'll do professionally. Unless you are happen to be in a scientific field where you are advancing something and you have this incredible skill set, the networking is going to be what teaches you about the opportunities and is going to connect you to that network. And 3, I really hope you'll think about Vermont. There is tremendous opportunity in this state. It needs you. It's okay to leave, but please come back. Please always remember that your St. Mike's connection is going to make it easier for you to find a job here than anywhere else in the world. And I hope you'll take that seriously.
Thank you, Tim.